Hello dear friend, and welcome to On This Day SMR with me, Edward Hertz, where we take a look back through history at events which took place on this day. The rain is gently pittering and pattering away on the window, and the fire is crackling away nicely in the hearth. So put your headphones on, sit back, relax, and let me take you on a journey back through time. Today is Monday, the 1st of April 2024, and we have 55 events to cover, going all the way back to the year 527. Starting with the most recent event, which happened 8 years ago. The 2016 Nagorno-Karabakh conflict begins along the Nagorno-Karabakh line of contact. 13 years ago in 2011, after protests against the burning of the Quran turn violent, a mob attacks a United Nations compound in Mazar-i-Sharif, Afghanistan, resulting in the deaths of 13 people, including 8 foreign workers. 18 years ago in 2006, the Serious Organised Crime Agency of the Government of the United Kingdom is enforced, but later merged into the National Crime Agency on the 7th of October 2013. 20 years ago in 2004, Google launches its email service, Gmail. 23 years ago in 2001, an EP-3E United States Navy surveillance aircraft collides with a Chinese People's Liberation Army Shenyang J-8 fighter jet. The Chinese pilot ejected, but is subsequently lost. The Navy crew makes an emergency landing in Hainan, China, and is detained. In the same year, former President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milosevic, surrenders to police special forces to be tried on war crimes charges. Also in the same year, same-sex marriage becomes legal in the Netherlands, the first contemporary country to allow it. 25 years ago in 1999, Nunavut is established as a Canadian territory carved out of the eastern part of the Northwest Territories. 27 years ago in 1997, Comet Hale-Bopp is seen passing at perihelion. 31 years ago in 1993, NASCAR racer Alan Kulwicki is killed in a plane crash near the Tri-Cities Regional Airport in Blountville, Tennessee. 35 years ago in 1989, Margaret Thatcher's new local government tax, the community charge, commonly known as the poll tax, is introduced in Scotland. 38 years ago in 1986, Communist Party of Nepal cadres attack a number of police stations in Kathmandu, seeking to incite a popular rebellion. 40 years ago in 1984, singer Marvin Gaye is shot to death by his own father in his home in Arlington Heights, Los Angeles, California. 45 years ago in 1979, Iran becomes an Islamic republic by a 99% vote, officially overthrowing the Shah. 48 years ago in 1976, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak found Apple Computer Incorporated. 50 years ago in 1974, the Local Government Act 1972 of England and Wales comes into effect. 51 years ago in 1973, Project Tiger, a tiger conservation project, is launched in the Jim Corbett National Park, India. 53 years ago in 1971, in the Bangladesh Liberation War, the Pakistan Army massacre more than 1,000 people in Karimganj, Upper Zilla, Bangladesh. 54 years ago in 1970, President Richard Nixon signs the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act into law. In the same year, a Royal Air Maroc Sud aviation caravel crashes near Berechid, Morocco, killing 61. "55 years ago in 1969, the Hawker Siddeley Harrier, the first operational fighter aircraft with vertical short takeoff and landing capabilities, enters service with the Royal Air Force. 60 years ago in 1964, the British Admiralty, War Office and Air Ministry are replaced by Unified Defence Council of the United Kingdom. 64 years ago in 1960, the Tyros-1 satellite transmits the first television picture from space. 69 years ago in 1955, the EOKA rebellion against the British Empire begins in Cyprus with the goal of unifying with Greece. 70 years ago in 1954, United States President Dwight D. Eisenhower authorizes the creation of the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. 75 years ago in 1949, in the Chinese Civil War, the Chinese Communist Party holds unsuccessful peace talks with the Nationalist Party in Beijing after 3 years of fighting. In the same year, the Government of Canada repeals Japanese-Canadian internment after 7 years. 76 years ago in 1948, in the Cold War, Communist forces respond to the introduction of the Deutsche Mark by attempting to force the Western powers to withdraw from Berlin. In the same year, the Faroe Islands gain autonomy from Denmark. 77 years ago in 1947, the only mutiny in the history of the Royal New Zealand Navy begins. 78 years ago in 1946, the 8.6 magnitude Aleutian Islands earthquake shakes the Aleutian Islands with a maximum Mercalli intensity of 6. A destructive tsunami reaches the Hawaiian Islands, resulting in dozens of deaths, mostly in Hilo, Hawaii. In the same year, the Malayan Union is established. Protests from locals led to the establishment of the Federation of Malaya 2 years later. 79 years ago in 1945, in World War II, the 10th United States Army attacks the 32nd Japanese Army on Okinawa. 80 years ago in 1944, also in World War II, navigation errors lead to an accidental American bombing of the Swiss city of Schaffhausen. 83 years ago in 1941, Fontana Alba massacre. Between 200 and 2,000 Romanian civilians are killed by Soviet border troops. In the same year, a military coup in Iraq overthrows the regime of Abd Allah and installs Rashid Ali al-Gilani as Prime Minister. 85 years ago in 1939, in the Spanish Civil War, Generalissimo Francisco Franco of the Spanish state announces the end of the Spanish Civil War when the last of the Republican forces surrender. 87 years ago in 1937, Aden becomes a British Crown colony. In the same year, the Royal New Zealand Air Force is formed as an independent service. 89 years ago in 1935, India's central banking institution, the Reserve Bank of India, is formed. 91 years ago in 1933, the recently elected Nazis under Julius Streicher organise a one-day boycott of all Jewish-owned businesses in Germany, ushering in a series of anti-Semitic acts. 100 years ago in 1924, Adolf Hitler is sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for his participation in the Beer Hall Putsch, but spends only 9 months in jail. In the same year, the Royal Canadian Air Force is formed. 102 years ago in 1922, in newly formed Northern Ireland, 6 Catholics are murdered in the Arnon Street killings, 1 week after 6 others were killed in the McMahon killings. 106 years ago in 1918, the Royal Air Force is created by the merger of the Royal Flying Corps and the Royal Naval Air Service. 116 years ago in 1908, the Territorial Force, renamed Territorial Army in 1920, is formed as a volunteer reserve component of the British Army. 124 years ago in 1900, Prince George becomes absolute monarch of the Cretan state. 151 years ago in 1873, the White Star steamer SS Atlantic sinks off Nova Scotia, killing 547 in one of the worst marine disasters of the 19th century. 157 years ago in 1867, Singapore becomes a British Crown colony. 159 years ago in 1865, in the American Civil War, Union troops led by Philip Sheridan decisively defeat Confederate troops led by George Pickett, cutting the Army of Northern Virginia's last supply line during the siege of Petersburg. 191 years ago in 1833, the Convention of 1833, a political gathering of settlers in Mexican Texas to help draft a series of petitions to the Mexican government, begins in San Felipe de Austin. 235 years ago in 1789, in New York City, the United States House of Representatives achieves its first quorum and elects Frederick Muhlenberg of Pennsylvania as its first Speaker. 452 years ago in 1572, in the 80 Years' War, the Watergeisen capture Brielle from the 17 provinces, gaining the first foothold on land for what would become the Dutch Republic. 943 years ago in 1081, Alexios I Komnenos overthrows the Byzantine Emperor Nikephoros III Botaniatis, and after his troops spend 3 days extensively looting Constantinople, is formally crowned on April the 4th. (1497 years ago in 527), Byzantine Emperor Justin I names his nephew Justinian I as co-ruler and successor to the throne. So that is all we have for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you found our little trip back through history both relaxing and informative. If you did indeed like the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and also consider leaving a comment below. All feedback is very much welcome. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. It will really help the channel grow and will ensure that you are notified of future videos. Be sure to turn on notifications so that you are notified of future videos as soon as they are posted. Thank you again, and I hope to see you next time.